But here's what nobody is talking about. This one decision by Myles Garrett might be the only reason Shedeur Sanders doesn't fail in Cleveland. And when you see what happens next, you're going to look at this team completely differently.
We're going to continue to support him. He spoke after the game, and he wanted to pin it on himself and his performance, but we're not going to allow him to do that. It's a team game, so we're all in this together.
I said he addressed the entire team in the locker room after the game.
Payments, okay? So he basically made this move so that the Cleveland Browns would have more cap space so they can get more talent in here. Everybody knows they need more talent on the offensive side of the ball around Shedeur Sanders. So this is a really, really good move from Myles Garrett. Okay, they spoke about the move on 92.3 The Fan. Let's take a listen.
And Field Yates putting out there that the Browns and Myles Garrett have modified language in his contract.
What if I told you that the most important move for the Cleveland Browns in 2026 didn't come from a trade? It didn't come from free agency. It didn't even come from the front office. It came from a man who doesn't play offense, a man who doesn't throw a single pass, a man whose job is to destroy quarterbacks, not protect them. What Myles Garrett just did has Browns fans losing their minds. And when you hear the full story, you'll understand why. Stay right here, because this changes everything.
The main hurdle to get over when you're a young guy, trying to be a leader, is the fact that you really don't understand or realize if you have that platform. You just kind of have to be given to you. You kind of have to be pushed into it or guided into it. Let yourself be that person, have that role, and that's by us as veterans enabling that. Those younger guys, those first, second, third year guys, let them know that this is our team just as much as yours. Take ownership of it, and don't be afraid to say what's on your mind. If you see something, say something. This game, like I said, it goes by quick. So, we can't be mincing words just because we're scared to say something, or you don't feel like you have the right yet. Everyone has the right to say something as long as you're out there giving your very best.
Right into this, courtesy of ESPN. Myles Garrett modified language in contract. The Cleveland Browns and reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, have agreed to modified language on his contract that became official on Tuesday, per league sources. Garrett's contract previously called for his option bonuses in 2026, 2027, and 2028 to be exercised by the 15th day of the league year. In the amended terms, the date has been pushed back to 7 days before the regular season each year.
Let's set the scene. The 2026 NFL Draft is weeks away. Shedeur Sanders is about to become the face of a franchise. The Cleveland Browns, a team that has been searching, struggling, and rebuilding for years, finally have their guy, their quarterback, their future. But here's the cold, hard truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Talent around Shedeur Sanders? Not enough. Not yet. The offensive firepower that a young quarterback needs to succeed? It's not there. And everyone in Cleveland knows it. Head coach Todd Monken knows it. General manager Andrew Berry knows it. And apparently, so does Myles Garrett. Now, Myles Garrett isn't just any player. He's the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He's the engine of this entire defense. He is the most dominant pass rusher in football right now, and he's locked into one of the most expensive contracts in NFL history. That contract, for a long time, was eating up cap space that the Browns desperately needed. But then something happened. Something quiet. Something that most casual fans might scroll right past. Something that changes the entire trajectory of this team. On Tuesday, it became official. The Cleveland Browns and Myles Garrett agreed to modified language on his existing contract. Now, before your eyes glaze over at the word contract modification, stay with me, because what happened here is bigger than any trade, bigger than any free agent signing. Here's what changed. Garrett's contract previously required his option bonuses for 2026, 2027, and 2028 to be exercised by the 15th day of the league year. Under the new terms, that deadline has been pushed back to 7 days before the regular season each year, and the payment of those option bonuses modified in a way that directly benefits Garrett financially. On top of that, $8 million in base salary from 2029 and 2030 has been moved into roster bonuses triggered earlier in each league year. What does all of that mean? It means the Cleveland Browns now have significantly more cap flexibility every single year, money they can use to build around Shedeur Sanders, money they can spend on offensive weapons, money that could turn a struggling unit into something dangerous.
What did Myles Garrett say? What did he say again?
Quarterbacks, the challenges. Do y'all have the guy? Is Shedeur the guy?
That's what we're looking at as a guy.
Hold on. What did you say again?
The challenges. Do y'all have the guy? Is Shedeur the guy?
That's what we're looking at as a guy.
Okay. Is that what you said, Myles? Don't listen to this Garrett. Listen to that Garrett. Now, you can listen to this Garrett, but that Garrett, he kind of is in there.
No, we're going to give him a shot to prove that he's a guy. So we're not going to give anyone that title until they go out there and earn it. And he was the last person to be on the field, and he showed some flashes.
Don't pay attention to me. Did Myles Garrett say Kyler Murray? Did Myles Garrett say Malik Willis? I don't think Myles Garrett was running around here talking about Kirk Cousins. He said it. I didn't. Stop asking me the questions.
So we're going to give him an opportunity to show what we can really do.
Did it sound like he said that they're going to get rid of him, cut the whole room? He said no. They're going to give him an opportunity to show what he can do. And by the way, he's already met with the staff. He's already met with Andrew Berry. He's met with Todd Monken. He's met with the owner. Do you think that he's not speaking from a level of inside knowledge on he just broke the sack record. Of course he knows what's going on. Stop asking me. Ask Myles Garrett. Not this Garrett, but that
bonuses early in each league year. So nerd stuff.
Nerd stuff. It helps out Myles. It helps out the team. That's all you really need to know.
So how does it help out the team since you
just get more cap space available to spend. So if you get that extra money's there then to spend on other players or whatever you want, and it just kind of helps ease that pain of paying Myles as much as you do.
Hey, this is what they do.
Yeah. This
if you ask him to draft, depending on the year, you ask him to make a trade or...
Think about what Myles Garrett just did. This man restructured his own deal willingly so that his team could have more room to build. He didn't demand more money. He didn't threaten to hold out. He didn't create drama. He sat down and said, make this work for the team. Make this work for our future. Make this work for Shedeur. That is the definition of a leader. That is what a franchise cornerstone looks like. And the front office, they have been working overtime. Andrew Berry has developed a reputation as one of the sharpest cap manipulators in the entire NFL. What he's been able to do inside the constraints of the salary cap is described by those closest to the team as next level. He understands the cap at a depth that most executives simply don't. But even Berry needs willing partners, and in Myles Garrett, he has one of the best partners an executive could ask for. Because when your best player is willing to sacrifice for the team, it changes the culture. It sends a message. It tells every player in that locker room, we are here to win. Not here for contracts, not here for stats, here to win. Now, here's where things get complicated. The 2026 NFL Draft is not a simple one. It is, by most accounts, one of the trickiest drafts Andrew Berry has had to navigate. There are blue-chip prospects at the top, but it's genuinely unclear if any of them will still be available by the time Cleveland picks. The best tackles in this class aren't necessarily playing left tackle. The top wide receiver, a position Shedeur desperately needs help at, has significant injury concerns. The next best receiver might project as nothing more than a number 2. This is not like last year's draft. Last year, Berry found good football players at every turn. He traded down, accumulated picks, and landed impactful contributors. One of those picks remains unspent, a wild card that still looms large. But that magic, that perfect storm of value and availability, it's not setting up the same way in 2026.
When you see Shedeur kind of making his debut and kind of like a high leverage moment like that, do you say anything to him maybe during the break, or do you say anything to him after the game?
For sure. I mean, just tell him to keep his head up. I know there was one drive in which he kind of walked off, and I saw him. He was putting his head down. I know he was kind of thinking about I know he wants to make the play. He wants to have that game changing drive because he feels like he has that ability, and we've seen it. So don't be discouraged from one drive or two drives. It's a good football team over there. So just trying to keep him to keep his confidence high, and keep on chasing that standard in which he set. And we're going to continue to support him. He spoke after the game, and he wanted to pin it on himself and his performance, but we're not going to allow him to do that. It's a team game, so we're all in this together.
He said he addressed the entire team in the locker room after the game.
There's a trickiness to this draft if you're Andrew Berry, and it starts with the fact that there's a couple blue chippers, and it's debatable if any of them are going to be there, and if they are, it's a running back or a safety. But it goes deeper than that. The best tackles aren't necessarily tackles, or if they are, they're right tackles. Mm-hmm. The best wide receiver has massive injury problems. The next best receiver might be a number 2 receiver. It's funny. I think this is a very complicated game that he's trying to play to ace this.
This is why the Myles Garrett contract move matters so much. The draft may not deliver everything the Browns need. Free agency has its own limitations, but having cap space, real, usable cap space, gives Andrew Berry options. It gives Todd Monken the tools to build an offense worthy of a first-round quarterback. It gives Shedeur Sanders a fighting chance. Because here's the reality. A quarterback is only as good as the players around him. We've seen it time and time again in this league. Talented quarterbacks buried by bad rosters. Promising careers derailed by a lack of support. The NFL is unforgiving. And Shedeur Sanders, coming into Cleveland with all that hype and all that expectation, cannot afford to walk into a situation without weapons. Myles Garrett understands that. He's making sure it doesn't happen. One more thing worth mentioning. Owner Jimmy Haslam, love him or hate him, is a spender. The Browns will not be outspent. They will not be a small market team hiding behind budget restrictions. In a league that is slowly drifting toward a have and have-nots model, Cleveland sits firmly in the have category. That matters. That gives Berry and Monken the runway to make moves that other teams simply cannot make. Add cap flexibility from the Garrett restructure to an owner willing to spend, and suddenly the offseason picture looks a lot brighter for Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett could have done nothing. He could have sat back, collected his checks, and let the front office figure it out. Instead, he looked at this team, this young quarterback, this critical moment, and he acted. He gave the Browns a gift, and in doing so, he sent a message to the entire NFL. Cleveland is not rebuilding anymore. Cleveland is building, and the 2026 NFL Draft is just the beginning. The next chapter of Browns football starts now, and Myles Garrett just made sure Shedeur Sanders has every possible chance to write it the right way. Don't miss what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button, because this Browns story is only getting started, and trust me, you don't want to be the last one to know what happens next.